What are we going to do with these two? What are we going to do with these two? Their kids are going to be up. Anyways, let's continue on with episode 5. And before we get started, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe for more old, obscure, and art house films. By the way, this is Scenes from a Marriage. You should know that already. Always love the resets. Always love the resets.
Johan and Marianne har I 10 års tid varit lyckligt gifta.
Happily.
De har levat i och som en blixt från klar himmel.
Out of the blue.
Meddelar Johan sin En dag ringer Johan och ber att få träffa henne. Hon bjuder honom på middag I hemmet.
Calls her right after Paula leaves him.
Båda skygga och
Disgusting.
Det är bara att kliva på.
Don't like that. I hate Adolf Appleton.
Hej, hur mår du?
It's an interesting relationship that's been established over the course of this series. The different ways that these two are seated together. The most prominent image of them seated together is obviously on the cover. Them together in bed, facing the same direction.
Oj, det var väl fint att vi kunde mötas här på ditt arbetsrum. Så
now they're sitting together. And this is refashioning the dynamic, the seating arrangement they have in bed when they were a couple together. That's a nice little reflection.
Det är ordagrant så som vi gemensamt har. Nej, men vad du är sur.
Jag är inte sur.
He is. He's being petulant. He's being a child. He's moping.
Inventarier och hur vi sinsemellan har delat upp dem. Det är bara en lista för minnet. Det behöver.
See, now he's in her realm and she can be the rational actor and she can be the authoritative one because she's a divorce lawyer.
Här står att du ska ha farmors pendyl. Det måste ju ändå vara ett missförstånd.
Ja, så men den har ju fått I gåva din farmor. Det har vi förresten talat om.
He knows. He just wants to start a fight.
Ja, men
He recalls. Come on. We all know how this is going to play out. Come on.
Du har naturligtvis rätt som alltid. Ta pendylen. Jag tänker inte bråka om småsaker. Vill du ha ett glas gammal fin god konjak?
Jaha.
This is again him displaying neediness for her. Just keeps on trying to trap her. He's got a cold. He's always vulnerable when he sees her. Men do be tricking women, though. I know the general consensus is that women trick men. That's from the perspective of men who have been tricked constantly. Like, if you only talk to men, of course only women trick men.
Var det svårt ändå?
Vad är det som är så svårt?
Att skiljas.
Det är bara några jäkla papper.
Vi är överens. Ändå sitter man här med dåligt samvete. När jag körde hit så var jag på jättegott humör. Jag hade bestämt mig att jag inte skulle börja gråta, att jag inte skulle låta situationen på.
That's not what's being asked of you, Marianne. We're not asking you to not be affected by this, to move on from this. We're asking you to be honest with what you feel.
Ljuset I taket, det är mördande. Hur kan du arbeta I ett rum som är så jäkla otrivsamt?
Don't do it, you guys. You're so obvious. God.
Vill du ha mera konjak? Har det bra nu?
Mycket bra.
What am I supposed to tell these two? What am I supposed to tell these two?
Vad är det som är trevligt?
They're gonna fuck again.
Jag vet inte, jag tycker vet du att det här blir godare och godare.
Du är på avundsvärt gott humör.
Ja, jag är visst.
I can't believe these two.
Om jag ska vara uppriktig.
I can't believe these two.
Fortfarande den där David.
Jag bryr dig inte om det.
I can't really say that Marianne's exactly a victim in all of this when she clearly wants this. Leave these two idiots to themselves. These two idiots.
Mycket bättre.
This is something that I don't like about Before Midnight specifically and what it says about the Before trilogy.
Just vad jag tänker det.
And what I don't necessarily agree with Marriage Story. In terms of them like resolving things with each other, in terms of them kind of like acknowledging each other or recognizing each other. There's like, it leaves in the audience a certain feeling of this is still endgame, even if they're apart, even if they find something different with each other. There's never going to be as special a couple as these two. There's never going to be anything other than Celine and Jesse. And I think something that Scenes from a Marriage points to, in contrast to that characterization, is that these two are idiots. It's immensely stupid what they do with each other. And their relationship isn't special. Their relationship is immensely familiar. I have a hard time believing that people watch this movie, and maybe the last 2 episodes will change my mind, but I have a hard time believing or comprehending people watching this and thinking that this is an ideal couple, or this is representative of a couple that needs to stay together. Don't let your hair down for him. Not for him.
Du ska blunda. Jag blir så medveten när du tittar på mig. Tänk om nattvaktnen kommer.
This is what movie stars are for. Movie stars should not make you like aspire to something, should not make you present you with an idealized version of something. Movie stars should be so beautiful and so striking, but convince you in the narrative that they're disgusting and gross and small. It takes a real movie star to take all those God-given gifts and those particular prejudices that film informs on its viewers and still make you think, these are utter lunatics. These are fucking buffoons.
Så har du någon toalett i närheten?
Till vänster i korridoren, du ser det med detsamma.
She needs to go clean out your cum.
Ska vi skriva under på det här nu, va? Så går vi ut och firar.
He's gonna complain about the clock, isn't he?
Det är avslutning på ett långt och lyckligt äktenskap.
Jag tänkte faktiskt ta papperna med mig hem och läsa igenom dem i lugn och ro. Du sa ju själv nyss att man inte ska skriva på någonting som man inte har läst igenom ordentligt, eller hur?
Då
sätter vi oss ner mitt emot varandra.
As soon as they got what they wanted, it's immediately back to fighting.
Plötsligt förbannad.
You don't understand? Then again, she doesn't understand. She doesn't understand that as soon as she did that, this is what was going to happen. They should both know by this point. But again, they're just like playing out the same game over and over again.
Så nu ska vi inte gå ut och äta heller?
Nej tack, det får vara jag. Inte tala nu, det vore meningslöst, så jag ska försöka behärska mig.
I mean, when have you guys actually discussed any of this?
Så att ni ser att jag inte har snuvat dig.
Snuvat dig?
Frågan om Marianne.
Ingenting.
I can really see Woody Allen loving this. He sees Alvy Singer all over Johan. He's just a guy. He just doesn't understand why everybody's so mad all the time. I could actually see the connection now between Johan and Alvy Singer, like a complete man-child that sees themselves as totally self-sufficient, totally a man of the world, and is a fucking baby.
Jag har redan lånat alldeles för mycket pengar av mamma.
This work is transformational. I'm so surprised watching it. It really has something to say. It's not just reaffirming the same old narratives that you get from these things, that, you know, as long as there's concord between the two, as long as they mutually understand each other by the end, then that's representative of a good relationship, that it was all worth it in the end. Is that your takeaway from this movie? How could you? How could you?
Lite pli får du väl sätta på jäntorna. De får inte regera det hur som helst. Hur som helst, jag har inga pengar för Evas Frankrike-resa. Det får du hälsa henne.
I mean, you can't afford the trip because you chose to get a divorce.
Det var ett jäkligt stort underhåll som jag dessutom måste skatta för. Som totalt urholkar min ekonomi. Om jag försöker tala med henne så svarar hon enstavigt som hon vore dum i huvudet. Annars pratar hon gärna med sina vänner i telefon och då går käften i timmar.
Because she doesn't feel comfortable communicating with you. She's not an idiot. She's a teenager.
Ja, just det, ser du. Jag är inte road.
You're having communication
Jag har träffat dem till
issues.
världen genom ett misstag och sen har jag betalat en oerhörd massa pengar till deras uppehälle. Nu får det vara nog. Jag vägrar att spela fadersrollen.
Du var annorlunda för. Jag menar, när det gällde barnen.
Now he just sees the girls as a proxy for his relationship with her.
Och hur ivrig du var att Eva skulle få ett syskon.
It's weird that, I mean, this is some parents, honestly, but his relationship with his daughters is conditional to his relationship with his wife. That fucking sucks. They did nothing to deserve this.
Du var så öm och varm och tålmodig. Mycket tålmodigare än vad jag var. Och de älskade dig.
So he used to get a different dynamic from his children, where he got to play act a kind of authority and caretaker for them. The same dynamic that he plays out with his wife, but in the opposite direction. So they kind of like fulfilled a social need in him, where he got to be a caretaker for them. And now that they're like becoming older or more self-sufficient, he doesn't feel like he can meet that role anymore, and he resents them for it. And obviously the issues that he's having with his wife as well, his ex-wife. It's so interesting because this movie, like on its surface, is posing the idea that love runs out, that relationships run out of steam or run out of energy. In some ways it does, but I think this series is actually really constructive in establishing that there's a lot of determining factors that there isn't just this sudden crisis of love running out. There's actually a lot of issues that keep coming up and coming up and coming up, and you keep ignoring them until it blows up in your face. Yeah, they just keep on not recognizing it. Can you imagine all of us being this unhappy when we get to be this age? Oh. It's coming sooner than you think.
Objektivt sett är jag redan ett kadaver. I 20 år kan jag gå förbi.
This is also a very fun, interesting extension of the dynamic that he plays out with Marianne, that he's unproductive, that he's helpless, that he can't do anything in his regular life anymore, and it's based on the kind of learned behavior that he has in his relationship. But all of this comes as a surprise to him. Suddenly he finds out that he's not the burning man. Suddenly he's not the golden boy. He's not the flaming citadel of intelligence and passion. He's another useless person. And how is he supposed to escape from that?
In i helvete trött. Jag vet knappast längre vem jag är.
He actually has the same crisis as Marianne, that he doesn't know who he is either. That's really interesting. They've been stuck in this dynamic for so long. Neither of them knows who they are.
När jag kom hit idag så tänkte jag plötsligt jag ville ligga med dig. Vet du vad jag tror, Johan? Jag tror att jag håller på att bli fri från dig.
Have you really? Because you did have sex with him. It's just that your dynamic has changed now, where you get to accuse him more often. But it sounds like they're stuck in the same place.
Det är väl ganska grymt eftersom du just har berättat för mig att du har det så svårt.
And now it's changed into the dynamic where she inflicts violence onto him so that she could repair him. This is the dynamic that plays out in Phantom Thread in a worse way, obviously. She tears him down so that she can raise him back up.
Retrospektiva utställningar är oerhört likgiltiga.
I guess they've forged a relationship of contempt now, where they're just going to try and constantly pull the carpet out from under each other so that they feel like they need each other.
Jag skulle ha slagit dig. Vänta bara. Om en tid gifter ni med varandra. Och så börjar det på exakt samma sätt med honom. Vänta bara, ska du se det där. Sitter djupt det.
Well, he knows that about her.
Jag vet att du har fel.
Det finns någonting som heter vanlig enkel ömhet, Marianne. Men allt det där är blockerat för dig.
This is such a terrible thing that couples that feel trapped in a marriage with or a relationship with each other do. That they just slap each other down so much to make their partner believe that nobody else will ever love them. What a terrible thing to do to another human being.
Du utnyttjade ditt könsorgan.
That does happen.
Om jag fick ligga med dig ena dagen så skulle du underförstått slippa nästa dag. Om jag var snäll och hjälpsam så belönades jag mitt ligg.
It's funny him explicating this relationship of performative behavior, of transaction. It's interesting that he recognized it as something that she's done. That's something that's inherent to females. I wonder if he knows if he's done the same. They're really driving it home what's actually happening in this relationship.
Jag hörde aldrig annat I första åren av vårt äktenskap. Och det enda ni lyckades med var att ge mig dåligt samvete.
I don't think people understand what they're arguing about when they say that, like, you're just looking for a mother, not a wife.
Det var krav och ofrihet överallt. Det var gnäll och tjat och krav och fan ta dig.
Like, we're really discussing a dynamic of being cared for and being infantilized.
Så vill jag skrika och jag säger dig aldrig mer, aldrig mer, aldrig mer, aldrig mer. Och jag önskar att du fick den ordentligt nedkörd I halsen, att du är en oduglig parasit.
Nu är du fullständigt grotesk.
En sen då jag har blivit sån. Men skillnaden på ditt och mitt groteskeri ser du, det är att jag inte ger mig. Jag tänker fortsätta du, jag tänker leva I verkligheten.
I really hope so, but it doesn't sound like it. Maybe she just needs to get this out of her system, but it sounds like they've developed a relationship of antagonism, and that's how they get an emotional thrill from each other, because they're both participating in this fight. I think if Marianne realized something about herself, she would step away from this. She would recognize that she doesn't get enough out of it, so she would walk away. But they keep on engaging each other. It's turned into a relationship of contempt.
Tror du inte att jag vet vad du har sett och tänkt hela kvällen? Du vill inte ha någon skilsmässa.
Det var det dummaste jag hört. Jag erkänner mig besegrad, det är det du vill höra. Jag är trött på Paula. Jag längtar hem.
Okay, pause. Okay. So they're going to keep talking about this, and I'm interested to see where it continues. She's gotten him to admit a truth. I'm not going to call it the truth, but I'm going to call it a truth. She wanted him to admit that he still wants this relationship, because a barrier in this marriage has been that Johan doesn't communicate adequately with Marianne, that he hides his intentions and he hides his feelings and leaves it up to Marianne to interpret them and to cater to them. So to a degree, this is a change, a transformation in that dynamic. He is made to be explicit for once, but I don't know if he's being as explicit as we, the audience, or perhaps I really want. I think there's an audience, and I think Marianne wants to hear that he wants this relationship. I think that's an honesty that she's seeking, and it's an affirmation that she wants, that he actually cares about this marriage. What I'm hearing from him, the honesty I'm hearing from him, is that he needs her. I think that's good. I don't think that's the whole story. I don't know if he is being honest in the sense of him saying why he wants this marriage, why he wants them to stay together. I think if both of them were honest about why they want this relationship, why they want this marriage, that it's comforting to them, that they both hate trying to live on their own, but that they don't actually love each other. They feel familiar with each other, but they don't actually love each other. And they do get something out of each other that nobody else can provide, but it's because the thing that they give to each other is toxic. It's not something that somebody with a healthy ego would willingly try and reproduce. And even if they could, they wouldn't reproduce it to the degree of intensity that these two have produced with each other. So if it were up to me, I would say that they're being transparent with each other about wanting the marriage, but not being transparent with each other about not loving each other anymore. And I suppose this goes back to a question earlier in the movie of like, what is a marriage? What is a relationship? And ultimately, what is love? Is love something that is affection and trust and knowledge of each other? Or is love something as transactional and as mundane and as disappointing as needing somebody more than anybody else? And I don't mean needing as in your heart needing. I mean needing in terms of needing an addiction, of needing something just to get you back to square one, just to keep you level, just to keep you even. A kind of a need that's born out of fear, out of a kind of paranoia at life and its possibilities. It's a harrowing portrait of marriage in that case.
Jag vet alltihop, du behöver inte se på mig med det där leendet. Jag är misslyckad och utförsbacken.
It's weird seeing little moments like reflect off in subsequent like works that derive influence from this. Like this scene of like his breakdown and her going to touch him is obviously reflected in Before Sunset between
Jag vet att vi skulle bli mycket mer angelägna om varandra.
between us,
Tror du inte det?
Celine and
Tror du inte det, Marianne?
and Jesse. But obviously the relationship between Celine and Jesse in Before Sunset, at least, is a different dynamic from what's being presented here.
Om du visste hur många gånger jag drömt att jag slog ihjäl dig, att jag stack en kniv i dig, att jag mördade dig, att jag misshandlade dig.
So it sounds like you two shouldn't get back together.
Du är faktiskt väldigt vacker när du blir så där arg.
Johan, det där säger du bara för att du är deprimerad och för att du har haft motgångar. Du vill ha lite medlidande.
Yeah.
Jag
känner en sån frestelse att vi ska börja om igen tillsammans. Jag skulle vara dig till hjälp nu när du har det svårt.
And that's something she really, really wants.
Förstår. Tror jag.
Du, nu ska vi inte prata mer om det här, va? Nej. Ska vi ta den här supén då?
Yeah, let's just not talk anymore. Let's just go eat together. Human beings really are just something else. Just something else. I hope they're divorced next episode. I don't think it'll change their dynamic, honestly, to be perfectly honest. But I hope they're divorced next episode.
Jag vill inte åka hem.
Det går inte.
Så varför går inte det då?
Det är för att jag har en man som sitter där hemma och väntar på mig.
Är han svartsjuk?
Nej, inte särskilt.
This is honestly hell.
Men han känner till min masochistiska...
This is honestly hell. This is Sisyphean.
Vet du vad han sa innan?
This portrait of marriage is Sisyphean.
Nu kommer du att ligga med din man. Och sen kommer du hem förkrossat av dåligt samvete.
Everybody knows.
Och sen
He
har du
knows.
inte skrivit på pappren. Kom nu min lilla gubbe så går vi.
På pappren?
We'll leave it for another day.
Ja, jag vet inte säkert, men jag tror det. Min vän som sitter där hemma, han passar mig.
In a way, it really creates the dynamics of a TV show. I don't think Bergman was thinking about that when he made this, but it actually plays into the mechanics of a television show. You're watching the same scenario play out over and over and over again.
De gör mig detsamma om jag bär ditt eller mitt eget eller någon annans namn.
This is something that people enjoy about TV. And you watch it play out this story in that format, and you're like, this is hell. These people are trapped in this television. And we're just watching them play out their insane drama for us over and over again.
Men börja inte så där, Johan, du är trött av druckit.
Jag vill inte att du ska gå. Det är fullkomligt fan i vad du har att anföra. Det surrar i Mariannes välplanerade skalle. Vad gör jag nu? Han blir galen. Jag kanske slår mig.
Please don't. I really just ask that this series not be about that.
Jag tycker mer ser rädd ut.
That would be interesting, though.
Låt mig åtminstone få ringa taxi.
If they made this about that, and all of the movies that were influenced by this edited that out, that'd be an interesting conversation to have.
Jag vill bara se på den.
Skål. Egentligen är ju det här precis vad jag borde vänta mig av en som du. Om du visste hur många gånger jag har varnat hustrur.
And again, a different snapshot of their life based on them sitting opposite each other. If you recall back to episode 1 or episode 2, I constantly think back to them at the restaurant with each other, how close they were to each other.
Trodde ju inte att jag skulle hamna i den här situationen.
Håll käften.
Om du vill veta så är jag ganska likgiltig för vad du tänker ta till.
And they're just smaller and further apart.
Käften säger jag!
Nej men du är inte riktigt klok!
Yeah. This is the only way they know how to communicate with each other at this point. This is the only way that they can be intimate with each other, make contact with each other, and it's disgusting. And this is what leads to women getting killed.
Jag kanske kan få låna nyckeln så jag kan gå och torka upp lukten.
Jag släpper inte ut dig.
Åh, din jävla förbannade!
Är du tokig, din jävla apa? Ska du hålla på på det där sättet, va? Så...
I think people watch this sort of thing, and it's just like drama to them. This is just a play. This is just a teleplay. And you have to recognize that this is something that's happening behind closed doors. People are actually doing this to each other. Human beings that you know that are in your life are actually doing this to each other and doing this to other people. And this relationship needs to end. He's crossed the line. You need to recognize that. You need to recognize that if this relationship continues, this is going to get worse. Okay, he's made the decision for himself. I think that's good. I think that's great. I think if he's capable of that, that's a wonderful thing. I didn't want it to reach this point for that.
Ni har nu sett 5:e avsnittet av Scener ur ett äktenskap. Och
But
det
I'm
heter
glad they stopped it
Analfabeterna.
before it went further.
Och medan ni tittar på den här vackra bilden från Fårö ska jag tala om vilka som har gjort vad. Klippning Siv Lundgren, skript
Siv Lundgren.
Gunnar Statin.
Okay. Siv Lundgren.
Året är
Yeah.
3.
I'm like really nervous to see what episode 6 of this is like. But I just want to speak about the violence. I think it's representative of something that actually happens in real life. And so I was nervous about it being represented on screen because obviously its depiction on screen lends to certain manipulations, certain presentations, and it's difficult to take something that's a real life topic and somehow transform it and narrativize it within the context of a feature film or a teleplay. I do think that it's necessary within the context of this film and the story that it's trying to express to have that scene and to understand that this is a line that Marianne and Johan shouldn't cross, and if they cross it and if they continue, it's going to lead to them killing each other. It's going to lead to Johan killing Marianne, let's be clear. Something that I'm not saying that this is a dynamic that's true in all relationships. It obviously isn't, but I would say that there's obviously social pressures, social norms in place that lead it to happen more often than not. Lead to men being physically abusive to women, leading to women being beaten and injured and sometimes murdered as a result of social norms at play. So again, I'm not saying this is true of all relationships, but the movies that this has influenced, something I find disturbing and dishonest in them in reflection, knowing that they're in some way in dialogue with this movie, is the intentional censorship of that aspect of the story, because ultimately those movies concern the story that they're trying to tell is a love story, and I think that is a that is a status quo affirming narrative, that if you keep on telling people that at the end of this road there is love and there's understanding, maybe that's true for some people, but I think you're also telling some people who are in relationships of abuse that there's hope at the end of that tunnel. And when I say hope, I mean hope with your partner. And I think that can be a dangerous thing to say. I don't know if I want to make a moral judgment on any of these narratives, on this, on like Before Sunset, before or Before Midnight, or Marriage Story, or Annie Hall, because those movies are useful and important to people watching them in a certain context. Marriage Story has the hitting the wall sort of thing, but it's funny because by skirting the issue of it being an actual issue of physical violence, it's become a meme. People can only process it as a meme because it deflected from the issue. Yeah, so I don't know what to say. I would say that I'm troubled that that aspect is absent from all these spiritual successors. I can't individually point the finger at any one of them and say that they've intentionally omitted something. I would say in these continuous presentations by male directors and male writers that this aspect of a relationship is omitted is dangerous. And I think in aggregate, male filmmakers are telling on themselves by not telling on themselves in this aspect. And I think, again, this isn't saying anything about any of these individual filmmakers, but if you watch these stories by all of these male filmmakers and this isn't an aspect of the story, you need to know that as a whole, male filmmakers are omitting this part of the story. Cool. That's episode 5.